It's the first week of the preseason, and it's time once again for Football Friends Users, the podcast Cowboys edition. It's George Dunham and Bob Stern. We're going to be here throughout the football season as your friends. And Bob, we got our first preseason game of the season this Saturday. The defending Super Bowl champs and the Cowboys on Saturday. And we've had an interesting week. We got some news from California. Do you have this preseason experience? You get so excited about it, and then about midway through the second quarter, you're like, oh my gosh, how much longer is this thing going to be?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's all part of the onboarding process, Georgie, in that we want to onboard with football second week in July. And it's for those of us who are grown-ups, this is as close as we have to replicate the countdown to Christmas Day experience of our childhood, right? Uh-huh. And you know, we're in the dog days. We are now second week in August, which is a long way from Labor Day. But it's close enough that we can sort of smell it, we can sort of feel it, we can sort of taste it. There are things like Hard Knocks, there are things like preview magazines and maybe Football Friends podcasts that sort of are getting us in the mood. The quarterbacks doc on Netflix is kind of helping me. So it's exactly like it is every year. We talk ourselves into, man, I can't wait to watch preseason games. And then 45 minutes into a preseason game, we're saying, why did I think this was going to be fun? But it's all part of the fun as we get to Labor Day weekend.
Well, speaking of fun, I have a very special gift for you, Bob, because we're both back from California. We were in California with the Cowboys, and we both made our way back. I believe you had to do your radio show Friday night, came back Saturday.
Yep.
I don't want to name drop or anything, Bob, or destination drop, but I on Friday headed up the coast and went to this place called Pebble Beach and played in the Texas National for the Pat Green Foundation, and had a real big time. But this ties in with you, my football friend, because you're also a big hockey fan.
Yes.
And my son alerted me to this, that last May, when the Dallas Stars advanced in the postseason by beating the Colorado Avalanche in a Game 7, Mikko Rantanen scored a hat trick, and it was an unbelievable sports moment. He eliminates his old team, and Bob is there, and of course, if you're at a hat trick, you have to throw your hat on the ice. Well, Bob, being in the arena, thought, well, I've got to do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite hat. It's my Pebble Beach hat.
That's right.
So as I am in Pebble Beach and having the time of my life and rubbing elbows with the likes of Walt Wilkins and Pat Green and Django Walker and Ray Wiley Hubbard and the great Randy Rogers, I also realized my friend Bob needs a hat because he threw his favorite Pebble Beach hat onto the ice. Uh-huh. So, Bob, as you see there in the message that I sent, that, sir, is your new Pebble Beach hat that it will be in your box at the radio station tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome. What a beautiful hat, too.
You like it? A little gray with the Pebble Beach logo there. And
yes, thank you. I shall wear that with pride. I will say that Mikko Rantanen deserved that tribute, and so I have zero regrets. But it did. It's one of those moments, George, where you wish you would have brought a backup hat for the hat trick throw, right. Like you have one just on hand. But you know, I mean, what a nice gesture. I first of all, I appreciate you playing the humble munis of California like you did there.
It is. It's just a little muni on the coast, is all it is.
Yeah, it's just barely staying in business and all that. But thank you for the souvenir. I hope you had a tremendous birdie filled weekend at Pebble.
I did have a few of those. The highlight was 2 over 37 on the front at Pebble on Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, the back nine was another story, but the whole weekend was awesome. And my son brought that up to me, and I said, well, I've got just the hat for Bob. And by the way, it relates to football friends because that's what friends do.
Yes.
Things like that.
That's right.
And my youngest son's middle name is Landry.
Yes.
So see there? It relates right back to what we're talking about here, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so we've had an active week with the Cowboys. I do miss Oxnard. Seems like we were just there for a couple of days. We were there for a week, but we saw some really interesting things. And not too long after we leave camp, Bob, Quinnen Williams gets extended. And, hey, this is a sign that maybe this year is different. There's no doubt about this. There's no, hey, let's wait till next year. He's got a deal that will do the Cowboys some salary cap favors in the next couple of years, and it secures this, and it takes that storyline of what's his future here in Dallas right out of the way.
Yeah. I didn't see it coming, but maybe I should have because of the state of the Cowboys address or whatever we call the silliness of the Stephen and Jerry press conference. They did the very weird thing of basically explaining how the George Pickens thing is just our decision and we're not doing it. And, you know, he can play on the franchise tag and we hope he does, but we're not going to talk long-term future stuff. And then like 2 questions later, but we would love to do a deal with Quinnen Williams, like over breakfast, like today. And that definitely probably potentially could hit George Pickens, maybe George Dunham, but the Georges might not take that as well. By all accounts, Pickens is not bothered by this. That's good. I will note that for future reference if he changes his mood at some point. But they wanted to do a deal with Quinnen, and no sooner do they say that than his agent, Nicole, shows up at the practice field, I want to say Saturday. And so now we're like, okay, agents do, quote, check up on their clients, but usually if they mobilize across the country or even up the coast, they are doing it for business reasons. We have a meeting, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. So 3 years, basically $106 million in new money, and then you add that to like the $45 million in current money for the next 2 years for Quinnen. So in a sense, it's 5 for 152, which hits at about 30 a year, slightly more than 30.4, I'm going to say. And the new money is about 35.3 a year. So the cost of defensive tackles is way up. If you're wondering how they got to 105.9, that's because Jeffrey Simmons just signed at 105.8. A month ago. And I can tell you how the contract works is we'd like to work off Jeffrey Simmons. We feel Quinnen, and I'm guessing this is his agency, but maybe the Cowboys are saying it. We just think that Jeffrey Simmons is your comp. They just gave him that in Tennessee, and we would like to exceed that ever so slightly. And the deal was done. And so it's kind of comical how these contracts are done, so much so that a podcast can sort of project every new contract based on this is how it's always done is you find the last one and you put 0.1% more on there. But that's how it worked. And Quinnen wants Dallas. Quinnen wants to leave that dubious group of Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers of all-time greats who never played a playoff game. And he wants to do that here. And the Cowboys, honestly, attach so much meaning to him to justify the Micah Parsons trade that this was always going to happen from a Cowboy standpoint. You can't let Quinnen walk as a free agent 2 years later. So they were always going to lock him up. To their credit, they see sooner is cheaper than later, as we've always implored them to do, Georgie. Yeah. And I think you said it. It's not a super typical Cowboys move, but maybe it's a sign that they're actually learning.
Well, it does seem like he's been in the league a long time to where you start thinking, man, is he 30-something? he's still just 28. Now,
Yes.
he's played 8 years. He came out as a younger player from Bama, but man, to have him for a full season, to have him with this scheme, we saw flashes last year of, wow, okay, he's making a difference, especially in that stretch against Vegas and Philly and Kansas City, where the Cowboys got a little bit of something going as a team, and that's probably the best they played defensively. Man, I think you're going to see so much more out of him, and I still think he has so much more in the tank, and we've heard about what a leader he is, what a template he sets, and I don't know. That's another angle of this, and maybe we'll do that at another episode of, okay, we've got these things that have been lined out now. Now the Micah Parsons trade of last year, you're starting to see exactly what it is with still one more draft to fall. But last year when you said, okay, this may not be the craziest thing, as you see it a year later, no, it's not the craziest thing. You miss him as a pass rusher, but you have now replaced him with Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, LT Overton, and let's see what some of these young players do. And I don't know. It's not as crazy a trade as it seemed last year.
No, it's not. I still have a fair amount of pushback on the premise, the overall premise of trading Micah Parsons. And if you wanted Quinnen Williams and Micah Parsons, you could have had both. I do believe. I think there's a really good chance if Green Bay offers you, or not Green Bay, if you offer the Jets 2 number ones for Quinnen Williams, you'll get him. And then you have to reverse engineer things, and maybe then you don't get Caleb Downs, and there's the butterfly effect and all. So there's a lot to it, but I think adding Quinnen Williams to Micah Parsons is sort of adding Myles Garrett to Aaron Donald, and I think that's how championships are probably won, but without being a stickler for all of the facts and reality, allow me to say that if the trade is Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark and 2 number ones, and one of the number ones is definitely Malachi Lawrence, and the other number one is 65.
Yeah, I said Overton. Malachi Lawrence. Yeah, sorry about that.
65% of what you paid for Quinnen, because you also gave them your own second this year. So we have to sort of say it's not quite Quinnen, Malachi, and Kenny for Micah, but it's Kenny, Malachi, and most of Quinnen for Micah, and that's kind of the trade now. And then you say, well, what about the money? Well, Micah's new money was about $41 million, and honestly, you're kind of giving Quinnen and Kenny about $50 million a season, because I think Kenny Clark is at 21 right now, and I think Quinnen Williams is averaging out to about 30.4, I said. So you're actually spending more on those two than you are on Micah, but I think, without spending too much time on this, George, do we think the Cowboys did a good thing by trading one piece for 3? And that's kind of what we've complained about, is that the roster was too top heavy and they needed to diversify. And because there's 11 starters on each side of the ball, it's not necessarily about who has the best player. It's about who has the best 11. And I do think from that standpoint, we can look back and say, this makes sense. Now, Is it a better defense? We don't know, but we do know that when Micah was here, they led the NFL in takeaways and sacks in a 3-year window from 21 to 23 with Dan Quinn and Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and those guys. So that's a high bar of accomplishment. They won 12 games each year. If this new defense can get you to double-digit wins and back to the playoffs, then I think we can start to have the conversation. But I guess my overall take right now is I kind of think any of us trying to say they won the trade or they lost the trade, we just don't have the information. We need to know.
You're right.
You're right? We can't judge it every day.
when you say it is a different conversation, though, when you see some of these pieces start to fall in place, and you could call this dumb luck, but because of the fact that the Packers are paying Micah Parsons, and again, I think this is luck, but somebody like Rashawn Gary becomes available. And you add him via trade. I don't know. It's
no, you can. I mean, look, you definitely
give me a third of Rashawn Gary. How about that?
I was going to say you definitely can actually add part of Rashawn Gary to this trade as well. And so now you got 2 edges and 2 defensive tackles for Micah Parsons. I mean, that's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm not going to say stealing the front from the Green Bay Packers is exactly the the steel curtain, but Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary are really good football players, and we know Quinnen Williams is a superstar, and then Malachi Lawrence is a first-rounder who has a chance to be pretty good in this league. So, okay, now we're talking 4 guys for Micah, and I mean, it's difficult to say the Cowboys don't know what they're doing based on that particular move. That particular move says it sounds like a bunch of football scientists got in a lab and said, we don't love Micah Parsons' full package. I wrote about it this week, how sort of you can almost draw parallels between the Mavericks and Luka and all of the things that annoyed them, and the Cowboys and Micah and all the things that annoyed him. It is, in Luka's case, it was weight gain and things of that nature, defense, not stayed in shape in the offseason, always getting hurt. Micah didn't have any of those issues, but Micah had an annoying podcast and an annoying Twitter account that would basically demand a trade, I believe, on Twitter. Just so there's Micah, like Dez, was, quote, a lot. And if the Cowboys said, we want leadership, we want guys who are all ball, we want guys who are all Cowboys, if we're going to pay them all the money, we want to know that they're more than just a player. They're also a leadership component. I get it. And from that standpoint, I think the Cowboys made a pretty good decision. So now we got to see it.
Well, this week, the Cowboys had a scrimmage with the Rams, which, by the way, it's kind of funny, isn't it, that they do this at the Rams facility, and we can't really look at highlights of it because the Rams said, hey, I don't know how you guys do it at training camp, but we are not allowing cameras in here to shoot every stinking play of this thing.
Yes.
So that's enough of that. But what we've been able to take from it and listening and reading the reports of it, the Cowboys defense really had its moments. And speaking of Quinnen Williams, Brian Schottenheimer recommended that they honor the contract that he just got extended because he was really good in it. So was Winters, so was Revel, so was Bland. A lot of names pop up of guys who got in the middle. And, this was a blinking light that I have to admit I did not pay attention to. But if you go a year back, the Cowboys scrimmaged the Rams and just got gouged.
Yes.
And we were able to see some of that. And I remember thinking at the time, well, come on, it's a scrimmage. I don't know if I want to read too much into it. But that is the big thing from this week. Everything that's been said about the defense was on display against a good Rams defense or a good Rams offense. And this is something that it's taken me a while to figure this out. But these scrimmages, Bob, have turned into this is really how you get your starters ready for the regular season. It's a controlled scrimmage, so you're not going to have any trick plays or anything like that. The coaches are going to agree on things. You're going to keep guys safe. But this is how you get your ones quality work.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's evolved, and it's kind of back in secret. The NFL has given us a lot of information over the years. Now we have access to the All-22, and we can dial up any preseason game we want to see. And remember the good old days, Georgie, where we would just have to hope one of our preseason games were televised. And, just a lot of things have changed. But now the coaches seem to almost counter and say, we don't want to play these preseason games in front of fans and in front of television networks. We want to do our work quietly around noon on a Tuesday, and we don't want cameras in there. And I think Christian Parker was probably nodding as the Rams said, we don't want cameras, and we know his position on this. I don't want cameras.
That's what I've been saying.
That's what I've been saying. They won't listen to me. But, yeah, look, I don't know what to take from the results, especially since I didn't see it. But I do like to hear that the Cowboys kept their end of the bargain. I don't want to, dial too much meaning into it any more than we would if they play well against Seattle on Saturday in that preseason game. But at the same time, good reports are good. And in particular, the name you mentioned that continues to stick out to me as a training camp smile is Savon Ravel. And we're still to a point where we're not even sure we're saying his name right. And by that, I mean first name or last name, like who even knows anymore. It's
okay,
Siobhan, it's
I think I got
it's
it.
Revel, it's Ravel. What?
I do believe, according to the Cowboys media guide, it is Siobhan Revel.
Siobhan Revel. Okay, let's go.
That's what I've been told in print anyway.
Okay, well, that's great. And the best way for them to learn your name is for you to play in games and for them to say it a lot of times. And that's usually how it works. So to this point, Siobhan Revel has been a mystery and a rumor and just sort of a bit player. But every day people say, that corner who was hurt last year sure seems like a different guy this year. And that, let me tell you, when you're looking at your Cowboy stock prices every morning, if that one turns out to be a blue chip, everything changes very fast. If the Cowboys somehow have something resembling a lead corner that they took in the third round, that Christian Parker can help build a scheme around, that is massive.
Huge. And when we were out there, you saw him making plays. And I think last year, Bob, he was still trying to recover from a serious knee injury. He wasn't quite right. He was in a defense that had all sorts of problems. And here I think you see the strength of Christian Parker. He's a defensive backs guy. They really worked with him on technique. And I don't know if it means a darn thing, but I did see the unofficial two deep for this week. And Revel is a starter.
I love it. I absolutely love it because he, unlike Kobe Durant or Deron Bland, he fits all the prototypes for a lead corner. And so Bland is smaller. Bland is not as good outside the numbers. Kobe Durant is pretty good outside the numbers, but he's tiny. So both of those guys, you would say they're NFL corners, don't get me wrong, but they might not be NFL lead corners that you might ever compare to Patrick Surtain and Quinyon Mitchell, the lead corners in previous iterations of a Christian Parker, Vic Fangio defense. So you need that one dude, and then you need like the super slot. Well, if the super slot is Caleb Downs, and that one dude on the outside is Siobhan Revel, if he's that guy, like I said, then you're not searching endlessly for him. You've got him, and now you can begin kind of building his career and your defense together. So that's huge news, and I just want to go back to all the training camp practices we watched. The biggest takeaway when I look at him is I love his disposition. His general attitude out there seems great. His size is phenomenal. He's a very big man who moves very well. But the third thing that did make me wonder if the game has passed me by a little bit is the way he cut his football pants, George. He essentially
do something about that.
He essentially had his football pants almost at the Daisy Duke line, and it sort of looked like it was cut with like a sharp rock instead of like scissors. So the tattered, super high thigh football pants that just basically cover his butt. Again, like Daisy Duke, it works for some people. I'm just not ready for my NFL players to have it cut like that. But that's me.
I know. And they always say, well, the knee pads don't mean much. Well, it offers some sort of protection. They're uniforms. There's supposed to be some uniformity to all of this. We've got to stop these.
Tex Schramm would never
shorts.
go for this.
No, he wouldn't like this whatsoever. All right, so we'll see more of the Cowboys and the 2s and 3s on this team. You won't see much. That's another one. Revel, as a guy, you play him much on Saturday? Or has he shown you so much that it's like, hey, we don't need to get this guy out there and have him running up and down the field for 2.5 quarters?
Man,
What do you think?
I got to play him.
Okay.
I don't know if they do, but I just think if week 1 is Malik Neighbors, I want Revel to run with some top wide receivers in game action. Now maybe Smith and Jigba definitely will not be playing in this game, so maybe this isn't the game for it. But before preseason's over, if any of my opponents are playing big-time wide receivers and trying to move the ball, I would love Revel to get some work. But again, old man yelling at clouds here about who plays in the preseason, because we know the Cowboys, despite what we might talk about here in a few minutes, which was a preseason game from 10 years ago where some interesting players on both sides were playing the preseason opener. Times have changed in the last decade, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that is the truth. All right, well, speaking of that, let's talk about a performance for the ages in a preseason game. It's a really interesting look back at what can happen in the preseason and what it can show about a rookie player who may become a bigger part of the season than you ever dreamed of going into a year. We're going to do that next on Football Friends. All right, the year was 2016, Bob, and the Cowboys had a couple of really interesting draft picks. Ezekiel Elliott, running back, taken 4th overall in the first round. And speaking of the 4th, in the 4th round, they took a quarterback by the name of Dak Prescott out of Mississippi State. And just as the Cowboys were getting ready to play the Rams in L.A., we find out that this kid, Dak Prescott, is going to start the preseason. And as an assignment, you said, hey, I've got this. Now, how you have this? Is it just up on YouTube, I guess, so anyone can go watch this?
Yeah, the NFL account just put it out there because, like me, they sniffed out this is the 10-year anniversary on August 13th of this game. So,
wow.
So they posted it, and I'm very thankful they did.
Well, I had forgotten that the opening kick went to a guy that I was actually familiar with, Lucky Whitehead,
yes,
out of Florida Atlantic. And he dips his way up the right side and goes 100 yards for a kickoff return, and it's 7-0 Cowboys. Then on their first possession, in comes Dak Prescott and leads them on an 80-yard drive. A couple of things stood out here. Dak's poise and how John Gruden was talking about it. He was in the booth.
Yes.
10 years ago.
Yes.
And I remember this game because we were all flipping out, just like, wow, look at this kid play. Look at these throws. I tell you who really helped him out that night and made him look good was Dez Bryant. It does remind you of how great Dez was. Yeah, he was a lot of things. As you said, he was a lot to deal with, but he was a lot for defenses to deal with too. And he made a couple of grabs on some Dak throws to the back shoulder that were awesome. But that was really cool looking back at that game and just how well Dak Prescott played.
Yeah, it really is. And just a couple more pieces of context. This is the first football game back in Los Angeles since the mid-'90s. So this was the Rams' return.
Oh, that's right, the return to L.A., yeah.
Yeah, and remember, the Chargers had not come to L.A. either, so this was a big deal at the time. And it was at the L.A. Coliseum, and so that was pretty cool. And it was just one of those beautiful Southern California August nights. And, you know, it was great because the Monday Night Football team was there, like you said, Gruden, and he's going crazy. But Dez is playing. Aaron Donald was playing on the other side. And it was just, you know, it was really fun. And it's still Jeff Fisher. And so that's pretty crazy. And, you know, just this is the year before the Rams became the Rams. So when McVay goes in there, Jared Goff learns how to play quarterback because his rookie year this year was kind of a disaster. But that draft was Jared Goff and Carson Wentz up top, and then it drops substantially to your Paxton Lynch's and so forth. And so the Cowboys were really focused on Dak Prescott in this draft process. I'm not saying they always wanted him, but we did know that he appealed to them in some way, and we didn't know where. We didn't know, is this a second round guy or when would you take a guy like Dak Prescott? But we knew he was on their radar because I wrote some stuff in March of that year about, here are some of the names we're hearing the Cowboys are excited about. So I was even reviewing those notes today just to see what we knew back then. And, I'm sort of comparing him to kind of a Tim Tebow type who can throw the ball way better and way far further. But the same sort of dual threat, the same sort of leadership qualities, the same sort of, he's got something. We just have to figure out how to make it work. And then, so a week before this game is when they lost Kellen Moore for the season in a training camp practice that you and I were both at, as I recall.
Broken leg, right? He had a broken bone in his leg. Yeah.
I don't remember specifically how it happened on that Oxnard field, but it did happen on that Oxnard field because we're standing there and they're basically putting him on a stretcher or something because it's not good. And so that was the week before. They lose QB2, and then 12 days after this game, they lose Romo in Seattle in a preseason game.
Planted on the turf, and his back is not good.
Yes, Cliff Averill got him. Although, honestly, at that point, it didn't even look that violent. It was just the state of Romo's body by that point, where now not even direct hits look like he's being hit by a truck. And, these bodies, man, they only got so much in them. But anyway, Dak, I just, watching that game again, man, there's so many indicators of what this guy can be. And I remember even at training camp that year, he was being very careful. He was being very cautious. And then Jameel Showers, who played the whole second half of this game, was sort of playing YOLO quarterback at training camp and throwing it deep and trying to show everybody he's got a little Tony Romo in him. And so to watch this game and to watch the Cowboys offense just look like a Ferrari. And, at the time we're watching it, we're like, yeah, but Tony Romo's their quarterback. We'll see if Dak can make this team. And then it turns out that Tony Romo's entire career is pretty much over, and we didn't know it. And then the rest is history. So 10 years later, Dak is still the QB1 of this thing. But I had the time of my life watching that again. That was really fun.
Yeah, it really was. And just like 10 years ago, the Cowboys will open the season against the Giants and then play Washington in week 2. But I got to tell you, in 2016, after the Cowboys looked so good offensively in that game with a rookie quarterback, if you would have told either of us, okay, something's going to happen to Romo, this kid's going to start from day one, and they're going to lose their opener, and then they won't lose again until December.
Yeah.
I never would have believed that. I say, you are crazy. That is no. They are not going to. And sure enough, it was the Giants that beat them twice that year, but they went 13-3. They had home field, and then you had the decision late in the season. Okay, Romo's back and ready, but Dak was so good that year that they stuck with him. I still think that was the right call. I don't think the result would have been any different against Green Bay in that playoff game. Do you?
No, I don't, but it does make people forever wonder, right? How things could have been different. And I don't, like I said, I don't know that, I just don't know that Romo could even take a hit at that point, and I don't mean to in any way be hopeless about it, but if you just go back and you look at Mid 2014, he got hit and missed 3 weeks. 2015, I want to say week 2 was the Eagles game in which he got injured and broke his collarbone. Then he came back on Thanksgiving of that year against Carolina and played like 2 quarters and broke his collarbone again. And now it's 2016. So really, over the final 2 years of his career, when he was peaking as a player, I mean, his performance at Lambeau in the 2014 playoffs is maybe the best game Tony Romo ever played. But he also was breaking down. And his back could not, and I don't know how the back and the clavicle work together, but they may be completely unrelated. But for like 4 consecutive times when he got hit, he stayed down and missed months. And so, yeah, you always wonder what would a healthy Tony Romo have been like, but who could possibly say? So I got this question from one of our listeners that I wanted to bounce off you on this topic of Dak and Romo and their legacies, because when Corby and I talk about this on the radio, we're sort of to the point now where it feels like Dak has sort of equaled Romo's career. I know we can get in arguments with people about that till the cows come home.
It's very similar, yeah.
But they have very, very similar careers, including they both have 2 playoff wins. They both have overwhelming losing records in the playoffs. Romo 2-4, Dak 2-5. Both of their wins were wild card round for both of them. And so Zach wrote us and asked if we saw the Albert Breer column about Dak, which I did not, but I will read it, and his vision for the Super Bowl title. He also wrote that if he retired tomorrow, Dak would be in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. I guess that's probably true, Zach writes, and I think I agree with it, but it made me wonder, should Romo expect to ever get into the Cowboys Ring of Honor? Notwithstanding recent developments, of course. What are your thoughts? And so let me ask you, Georgie, is Dak in the Ring of Honor? Is Romo in the Ring of Honor? Are they both, or are they, if one's in, do both have to go? And can either get in there if they don't make it to a Super Bowl? Or I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on this Ring of Honor, Dak Prescott, Tony Romo discussion.
No, I think it's a good question. I do think they're both in for the same reason that Don Meredith is in. Ownership back then in the front office, mainly Tex Schramm, the one-man committee, just like we have Jerry, the one-man committee now. Number one, if you make the family photos of the Jones family, and you have the type of career that Tony Romo did as all-time leading passer and all that, then yeah, you're in the Ring of Honor regardless of titles. And I think Jerry has that same special feeling for Dak in what he has done since he took over the job in 2016. I think they're both in, and I think it's Jerry speaking out of both sides of his mouth, because he has always said, I want that to be exclusive in Hall of Fame level players. And, who knows, by the time it's all said and done, maybe Dak will be a Hall of Famer, or at least in the discussion. So, yeah, I think because of the relationship with the Jones family and their accomplishments, it's not what Roger and Troy have in their pockets. But, yeah, I think they both are.
Yeah, I wondered what you thought, because Meredith does sort of crack the door that you don't necessarily have to win a championship. Of course, Meredith was darn close twice. And I don't know. I mean, I guess where I net out on this is Dak's story is not completed. But it wouldn't hurt if he could go on a January run or two for his career legacy. Romo used to talk about what you do in the regular season is how you make your fortune, but what you do in the postseason is how you make your legacy. Romo actually said that. He wasn't the first to say that. I feel like other quarterbacks through the years have said that. But
yeah, but I think that's very, very true.
Yeah, I do too. And I just don't know how many quarterbacks get to Canton, which was the bar for the Ring of Honor for the most part. I think almost everybody in the Ring of Honor except Leroy Jordan, Don Meredith, Darren Woodson, and one
Did you mention
more.
Don Perkins?
Yeah, that might be the fourth.
Yeah.
But there's only 4 that are in the Ring of Honor who aren't in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's a very, very, very high bar, and it needs to be. And if these 2 guys were Atlanta Falcons starting quarterbacks, I think the Atlanta Falcons Ring of Honor is probably a way different bar.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I do think it would be very difficult to put one of them in without putting both of them in, assuming Dak doesn't win a Super Bowl or get to a Super Bowl at least before he's done. Like if they both retire with 10 years as the starter, but only 2 wild card wins, then I don't know how you separate one from the other.
Yeah. That's why I think in the one-man committee, and assuming the one-man committee is still alive here in 5 or 6 years, then I think Steven would feel the same way.
Yeah.
I do. And so I think they're both in. I really do. And, I don't know what Dak's going to do post-career, but I think that matters, and I think that helped Don Meredith get in because of his high-profile visibility on network TV. I think that's helped elevate Romo's legacy and, and all that. So I think they are, and you're right. Dak is still riding it, and just like there's a difference between Dallas and Atlanta, man, there's a huge difference in the pressure that's on you. I don't think players around here, all of them feel it, but I think Dak feels it. Dak knows Troy. He knows he's met Roger. He's smart. He knows the history around here, and he knows the disappointment of the last 30 years. He's been a part of, we're talking a decade now of Dak ball, which is that's gone really fast, and he understands that. And I don't know, there seems to be just I think he's at a good place in his career. He's got a good team around him. He's got unbelievable talent around him now. He's got a good system. He's got a coach that he trusts. If it doesn't happen here in the next few years, obviously time's going to get him. But I think he's got a chance to add to that legacy, and he seems to feel pretty confident. And isn't it amazing when you hear a guy sometimes, and sometimes you shake your head and go, yeah, whatever. I don't know, man. It's just like John Gruden said 10 years ago. This Romo guy, man, he's got it. I still kind of believe that about Dak. If Dak says something, I tend to believe him. Just the way you and I, who have a personal relationship with Troy Aikman, still to this day, I feel like if Troy says something, I believe it. And just doing some things that have nothing to do with football, where I had to work with Troy, I didn't want to disappoint him, and I kind of feel that Dak has that, and I think Romo had that to a certain extent too. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think it still can happen for Dak, and I've always thought that about it since that first year.
Well, Dak needs 11 more wins to tie Troy Aikman for the most wins in Cowboys history. Did you know that? 11.
I didn't realize that. That's not that much. He could get that this year, Bob.
He could, and he also is 26 starts behind Troy for all-time starts. So 26 starts, 11 wins, and we assume he's going to start for 2 more full seasons. And at that point, if he does, he will have more starts, more seasons, more wins, more yards, more touchdowns, more everything than every Dallas Cowboys quarterback ever in the regular season.
Yes.
Which the regular season is how we keep stats, but of course the postseason is how we immortalize guys. And of course, Troy has 11 postseason wins. 3 Super Bowls. Rodgers got a number of both of those as well, and that's the discussion that we all have all the time. But it's an interesting one for sure, as now we have enough information on Dak to sort of size up his career.
Well, speaking of the last 30 years, it is a desert. It has tumbleweeds blowing through it, and we're going to talk about that next on Football Friends. it is not fair for players on this 26 Cowboy team that have to hear man, it's just another year. It's going to be just like 2017 or 2007 or 2012 or 14. I've heard it all for the last 30 years, and this team has nothing to show for it. And we've talked about it so much on this podcast, Bob, about how dominant this franchise has been in the first 30 years of existence, where you have 5 Super Bowl titles, 8 Super Bowl appearances, 16 championship appearances. It was expected year after year. Well, if they're not going to win it, they're going to be in the fight at the end, and they're going to be either in the championship game or the title game. That's not been the last 30 years. Since Super Bowl 30, they hadn't been close, haven't been past the divisional round. They've won wild card games, but they haven't been past the divisional round, not even an NFC title game. And it's been bad, and the numbers are staggering.
They are, and so I do this every year in my first essay of the season for whoever I'm writing for at the time, which now is me. But it's basically called Cold Hard Facts of Dallas Cowboys Football. And let me start with this, George. Do you know how long 1,000,000 seconds is?
No, not offhand.
1,000,000 seconds is only 11.6 days.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
1,000,000 seconds is 11.6 days. Based on that, how long is 1,000,000,000 seconds?
Well, I guess that would be, what's 10 times? That would be like 100 days, right?
No, it would not.
How's my math?
1,000,000,000 seconds, George, is 31 and a half years.
Oh,
so you're
okay.
You're a little off.
It's been a long day. Okay, yeah, 1,000,000 is yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so times 1,000,000. Okay,
1,000,000.
Yeah,
Or
I got
1,000
you.
million.
Times 1,000, not 100. Okay.
Yeah, so 11 days is 1,000,000, 31 years, 31 and a half years is 1,000,000,000, and both of those things are true, as mind-bending as they are. The point to telling you that is the Cowboys have one more year to win a Super Bowl under the 1,000,000,000-second mark since they last won. Okay, so it's been, as of this month, it's 30 years and 7 months since they won the Super Bowl, or something along the lines of 11,160 days is where we are right now. It's been a while. It's been 1,594 weeks, and of course, it has been over 30 years. And so now the facts are as follows, and these, stop me when you can't take anymore.
Okay.
This is the 31st season since the Cowboys last won a Super Bowl. They have won 5 Super Bowls, which of course ties them with San Francisco, and is one behind Pittsburgh and New England for all-time Super Bowls with 6. But the last 30 years have been bleak, given that this group's last parade came during the first term of President Bill Clinton. We have another term of Clinton, 2 with George W. Bush, 2 with Barack Obama, 1 with Donald Trump, 1 with Joe Biden, and now we're back with Donald Trump. So our country's done quite a bit of living. And let's just say anyone who is younger than the minimum age to be president of the United States, which is 35 years old, as we know. If you're 35, if you've just turned 35, there is very likely you have 0 memories of the Cowboys ever winning the Super Bowl. We have lost an entire generation, if not 2, to the Cowboy wilderness. Okay,
Yeah.
So that's number 1. During the stretch of 30 years, George, there have been 13 teams that have won a Super Bowl. Of those, 11 have won multiple Super Bowls, and 3 have won more than 2. One team, New England, has won 6 in those 30 years. But if you're looking for the 11 teams that have won multiple Super Bowls since the Cowboys last won a Super Bowl, New England, Kansas City, Denver have all won 3 or more. Tampa, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the Giants, the Rams, the Packers, and the Ravens have all won 2. And then there are 2 teams who have won a Super Bowl during that stretch, the Saints and the Colts. 21 franchises have won a conference championship game and have gone to the Super Bowl. 21 out of 32. Dallas is not one of them. This one hurts. 28 franchises have won a divisional round game in 30 years. 28 of them have now done it. That means only 4 have not, and only one NFC team is in that group. That is your Dallas Cowboys. So this is now the new big one that hurts everybody. Kind of, as Dave Campo once said, "Ow, my aching balls," I believe was
Yes.
his quote.
Yes.
This one might result in aching balls here. Here we go. One NFC franchise has not played in an NFC title game since 1996. One.
Wow.
And that team, of course, is Dallas. But said a different way, because now the Lions and the Commanders have both gone to NFC title games in recent years. All other 15 NFC teams have been to the NFC Championship game since 2010. All 15 of them have been there in the last 15 years. And the Cowboys are working on 31 now. 3 AFC teams have not been to the AFC Championship game, George. That would be Houston, Cleveland, and Miami. So these are the 4 lonely teams of the last 30 years. 3 franchises have won more playoff games than the Cowboys have played in these 30 years. New England's won 36 games. Green Bay and Philadelphia have both won 20 playoff games. And the Cowboys have been in only 18 playoff games in 30 years. And that takes us to our final one. Dallas is 5-13 in the playoffs in these 30 years. That is a win percentage of 27.8%. Only Miami, Cleveland, and Detroit have a worse winning percentage in the playoffs during these 30 years. Furthermore, their 13 playoff losses are actually 9th highest in the league, but they only have the 24th most playoff wins. Damn. So that's the list. All of them are facts. None of them are opinions. And it's clearly arbitrary that we start counting the day after Tempe, Arizona, Super Bowl 30. It's arbitrary. If you move those sample sizes back, the Cowboys, of course, measure very well with all of the powers, but we're not worried about that. We're worried about anybody under the age of 35 having a memory of the Cowboys being a real championship contender.
Wow. Those are staggering numbers, and I'll say 2 things. One of them is a negative for the Cowboys in that I think it does illustrate that once you get to the postseason, it's one thing. It's hard enough to win in the regular season, but once you get to the postseason, that's where you really do separate, okay, who's in this for real?
Yes.
And there's been some Cowboy teams that we thought, okay, home field advantage in 2007 and in 2016. And, okay, this team, the Des caught it year. Okay, they're close. Romo drops the field goal hold in Seattle and Parcells last year. But, man, it does illustrate all the things you talk about as what's wrong with this franchise since Jerry became the main guy to run it after Jimmy left. They won a wild – that would make its own documentary, just that 95-96 season, because it teetered on the brink of disaster. That was load left, and it was all sorts of bad things, but they regrouped at the end. They still had enough great players like Troy and Emmett and Michael and Charles Haley that they won it. But it does speak to, see, that's all these things we talk about, whether it's cameras on the sidelines or do you talk during your head coach's press conference after a game?
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that adds up and sinks your battleship in January.
Yeah, I'll tell you another thing, Georgie. It makes you think about Brian Schottenheimer, and someday, hopefully this coming winter, he will have to prepare the Cowboys for a playoff game. And it's my contention that the last several Cowboys coaches who have had the challenge of getting this team ready for the playoffs, and we could say Mike McCarthy, we can say Jason Garrett, we can say Wade Phillips. I suppose you could keep going if you want.
Why don't you go ahead and go on vacation? Get away from football for a while.
I mean, honestly,
don't get away from football. This is the time it matters most.
Honestly, if I'm Brian Schottenheimer, at some point, maybe it's already happened, maybe it will happen, maybe it will never happen, but I would just love to have, I don't know if a brainstorming meeting is the way to go, but a real thought about what is it about the playoff games that make every Dallas Cowboys player get that 1,000-yard stare? And you know, it's I mean, gosh, anybody who competes in any sport knows that pressure ruins certain people, and I'm one of them. I mean, you don't want me having to make a 5-foot putt to win the match. You just don't, because I get it in my head and I think about it and my life flashes before me. And as I bring the putter back, George, I've got SpongeBob and Patrick chasing each other. And I'm not made for this. I am not made for pressure. Well, when the Cowboys play in playoff games, we get those same feelings that these guys are completely spooked, not by their opponent, not by winning a football game, but by the fact that for whatever reason, they're carrying the burden of 30 years of Cowboy failures, and it's just too much for them to handle, and the stage is too big or the water's too deep. However you want to say it, I think this is a real thing. And I really am interested on how Brian Schottenheimer tries to slay that dragon, but I guess I would start with, does he even know there's a dragon to slay? Like, does he think about these 30 years and this list of facts and say, how can we approach this so these guys are free just to be the players I know they are in the regular season?
Well, that ties in with something else that happened this week. It's a little thing. And I don't want anyone to leave this podcast thinking, oh, geez, Bob and George spent time on this. It's a really little thing. But there is something different about how the Cowboys practice in Oxnard, how they finish the scrimmage against the Rams. They run sprints. And it's a little thing. But one of the things Brian Schottenheimer thought about his team, man, we did not finish the season well last year.
Yeah.
I think we got tired. I think we hit a wall. There were some games where we did not finish in the fourth quarter. We had a lot of soft tissue injuries, and all this stuff went into it, and they run. And to the point where at the end of the Rams scrimmage, Dak went over to, or DeMarvion Overshone came over to Dak and said, y'all ready to run? And Dak said, yeah, we can do it. Are you guys too tired? And no, we're not too tired. And so they ran sprints. And afterwards they talked to Brian Schottenheimer. He said, well, no, that's good that they ran them. We didn't tell them to. That was them on their own. And that may sound like, hey, boy, your 7th grade team's running sprints. I'm just telling you, that's the type of thing that you were just talking about, Bob, just the little things. And you do the little things in August and September and October and November and December, and then you have a better January. And you keep those links to the past, like Schottenheimer has, bringing in guys from the past. Don't be spooked by the past, but know that can happen to you too. Great things can happen to you. Know who Roger Staubach is. Know who Daryl Johnston is. And damn it, live up to some of that when it comes time to beat the other guy in January. And that's just a lot of hot air, but I think that, yeah, there is something to that, and that's why I said it kind of as a lark and of odds last February, but man, I think Schottenheimer knows what he's doing, and I like a lot of the things that he's doing, and why not? Why not this group to maybe make it to a title game this year for the first time in forever?
Yeah, no doubt, and all I can hear is Michael Irvin imploring us to finish the fight, because I know that sounds corny, especially when he's on the giant Jerry Vision screens yelling at us to finish the fight, but that's really what it is. And I don't want them to think about Cowboy history all the time because they're busy. They're trying to win in 2026. But man, anybody who saw that Cowboys-Packers playoff game in 2023, and if you don't think like they all need a collective like psychiatrist, including Dak and CD and all those guys who were on the field that day, man, like it was such a disaster that it felt like in 3 hours it encapsulated 30 years of Cowboys football. Like, and so that's what they're up against. Is I don't necessarily believe in leprechauns or you know the forces of evil that are around us and the ghosts and the haunting and who knows what's going on. But it didn't feel like a football game. It felt like the Cowboys were conspiring to sabotage themselves with at least 100 mistakes, and none of them resembled anything what we're used to. Micah looked like some guy out of the crowd. CD did too. Dak did too. And it's like, how many times are we going to repeat this? Is you work so hard to get to the playoffs and we're like, man, maybe this is the year, believe, and then crash and burn again. And so, a lot of it is Brian Schottenheimer. He's got to figure out how to be different. And we think he has an idea, but all of the talk, even of football friends, can only take us so far, George. At some point, this football team is going to have to do it.
Well, let's watch a preseason game on Saturday.
Yep.
Hey, the Cowboys are going to get on Hard Knocks, Bob, because they're doing the Super Bowl champions. Highly recommend it. Off to a good start.
Is it? Okay.
And it's kind of interesting to see not a team that's, a 3-win team a year ago or something crazy like that, but the Super Bowl champs and everything they go to on a journey to repeat. And I guess they're going to raise their banner on Saturday. So, hey, let's get this thing going. What do you say?
Let's get this thing going. I'm ready for some football.
Me too. All right. We'll talk about it next week on Football Friends, the Cowboys' first preseason game. Thanks to Peter Welton for producing. For Bob Sturm, I'm George Dunham, and we will talk to you next time on Football Friends.